Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Ed, I appreciate you being here.
Hey, how are you, man? I'm feeling pretty good.
You're always feeling pretty good, though.
There's too much in life, man. I was explaining to somebody yesterday in a consultation. I was explaining it like, look, you have to remember something. There are more things in your life to do than you'll ever have time to do. Mm-hmm. And there are more people. There's so many people on the planet. You could meet one every day for the rest of your life, and you won't even meet 1/10, or not even 1/100th of 1%. You don't have enough time. There's so many. So that what that tells me when I look at those kind of numbers, I get to choose how I'm going to spend my time. There's so many different paths. Many of them don't go anywhere. Many people don't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I try to focus on the ones that will yield a positive return for my time on this planet. So like that, I got 80 years if I'm lucky, maybe 90. I really would prefer to spend most of those in the best mood possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're a person that definitely you walk the walk, man. I mean, you do exactly what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, I try to. Yeah. Because if I didn't, how could I say it? And I guess there are people who fake the funk or whatever. That's one of the fortunate things about having one foot in the pre-internet era. And well, not 1 foot. I mean, I guess all throughout we had the internet in high school, but to say it, it was pretty much thing. My point is that having spent at this time half my life, and I didn't grow up in the social media era. There was never anything I built, and my entire mentality was all about putting together an actual body of work to where, if somebody decides, as we say, to pull my card and they go dig and do research, it's going to be they're going to go, oh, okay, this is not the target. This person really is what they say they are.
Right.
This person is who they say they are.
Right.
So, of course, I have to walk what I talk, but I walk what I talk. That's what I say. But it's more like talk what I walk is how I look at it, because I'm already living, I'm already doing the thing. Then it's just a matter of talking about it. And some people find it fascinating. Some people, I'm sure, think I'm pretentious or whatever. I mean, who knows? But I don't care about it, because I'm so happy, man. You know how
it's refreshing to hear someone say that.
How hard it would have to be at this point to knock me off my center. I think about this. What would make me have a bad day? I think if I woke up and I found out somebody was dead prematurely, like my mom died. I mean, I'm like, okay, she's a little young for it, not just turning 60. But I'm like, okay, that's gotta happen. But if I woke up and I found out my sister was dead or something, I'd be like, okay, that's crazy.
Right.
But outside of that, there's too much, too much good stuff to focus on.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you ever think about what life was like before the internet? I mean, you were very young when pre 95, 96.
I would say you gotta remember, while I'm not technically pre-internet, because the internet has been in some way, shape, or form part of things. Yeah, as long as I can remember. And actually, I won't even say the internet. Well, let's take it back, because what we're really looking at is communication, and we're looking at communication high speed and omnipresent, effectively range. Okay.
Give me a year. So what you're saying, because I always say 95-ish, 96, only because that was very special to me, because that's when it was becoming a thing. Wow, what is this thing?
Yeah, I would. We'll say there, and if you want to talk really when people can communicate with No, I mean that's pretty true because there was no. Yeah, I'll go with 95, 96. I was thinking about because I remember my dad got a computer. My dad got a computer before we did, and it had the internet, and that was a thing. But that was like the age of the 28.8 kbps dial-up. You couldn't use the internet and be on the phone.
Cut that in half. I had 14.4 in the cul-de-sac I was living. It was unbelievable. And then I got a DSL line, which was like two of those 28K lines
which
together.
Was fast. Now if you had DSL, it's still slow. Like you couldn't you couldn't
really
do
function.
Stuff.
No.
So that speed of communication is like in high school I had instant messenger and from freshman year. So when I started high school in 99. So yeah, 95 is probably a good time. And even in that era, right? You still like when I was on the bus, this is when I think about the changes when it happened. When you could cancel and a person wouldn't be stood up.
What do you mean?
Like, let's say I tell, me and you we're going to go meet at Shinley Park. And you get to Shinley Park before me. And something happens when I'm en route. And instead of you wondering what happened and eventually taking off in 15 minutes, I can shoot you a text or I can call you.
Okay.
That's a
game changer.
Huge jump. Like, we're not talking, no more, like the internet was around, but people still had payphones for a while. And it wasn't until cell phones really became a thing. I mean, like some kids in high school had cell phones. I remember my buddy, a good friend of mine, he had a cell phone. He was like on a plan with his mom. But it wasn't really a mainstream thing. Even when I got a cell phone, it wasn't really a thing. But then we got cell phones and then it jumped to smartphones in a relatively short amount of time. Because I remember when it seemed like everyone had a cell phone. That was probably, I was probably like 20. Yeah, I was probably like in my early 20s.
Okay.
Like 20, 23, 24. And I remember I got my first smartphone, which was like, I mean, it'd be nothing. You couldn't even use it today, I'm sure.
Right.
And I was a late adopter.
Okay.
And that happened right before I moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
So I would have been 25-ish.
Did you do the old T9 texting on the old flip phones? Like you could figure out a way to text, but you had to press each button like a certain amount of times for a certain letter.
I used T9, and then Predictive Text came out.
I don't remember that one.
Well, Predictive Text is the technology we use today.
Like swiping. Is the same
it was before swiping.
Okay.
But after T9. T9 was where you had to press. Then they figured out, okay. I mean, this was like the precursor to machine learning.
Right.
They were like, okay, you're going to use these words. What's the most likely
together.
Word? What are the top three words?
I remember.
Pop, and you fill out, and it was fast that way.
I remember.
That stuff changed everything.
I think texting changed everything.
Texting was big. But I think even bigger, in reference to specifically this kind of conversation, how we got here, what it was even bigger was the fact that you could, in real time, update your thought process, your location. You could document this and then put it out for people to see, and back and forth. And that started non-locality. Like I think people forget there was a world where you didn't have access to stuff in your hand.
Right.
Remember they used to used to tell us in high school, you won't always have a calculator. So and now you not only do you have a calculator, you got a graphing calculator, you got access to everything. In
the entire world, you have access to everything
in your hand.
Yes.
And you can connect to any person in the world.
And we still complain.
Long distance calling. Sure, you didn't even have to use a phone if you really don't want to. Like, but people have called me on Facebook. And on your face, you have a face like literally, a Skype and Zoom call.
It's a little intrusive, isn't it?
We have. Well, I mean,
it can be.
What I say is this: it takes a generation for a new idea to become mainstream.
Okay.
And for us as millennials, well, I'm a millennial. Your generation,
I think I'm the first year of the Generation X.
Generation X, right?
Or the end of the baby boomers. I was born in '66, and I think that's right on the cusp of it.
Okay, so yeah. So you're like the X. So what was new to you guys was mainstream to us. I probably touch tone phones.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
It's just a personal computer at your house. It wasn't connected to anything. Just
that whole idea, right? Yeah. Like I mean, I couldn't afford them, but we were aware of computers.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what was new for millennials was mainstream for Gen Z.
Right.
And what was that? Oh, that was internet, high speed wireless internet. That's just mainstream. And then what was new to them is like
social media
becoming mainstream, right? For what they call these kids, I'm not even sure what the
confused.
word is. Well, I'm to the point now where there's effectively two generations, and I don't know if it's always been that amount of time, but the changes have happened so fast. And I said this, I'm like, it's really kind of unfair to group all millennials who are technically millennials in the same generation, because when the internet and wireless internet came out and social media, there were still some kids that were like, what is it? MySpace was a thing that millennials used. The earlier millennials, the later ones were still in middle school, some of them elementary. So it's not really fair. But I think they have to start slicing them, because
absolutely,
people can are 21, they can drink alcohol, who were born in 2011. There are adults now that were not born during 9/11. Like, that's very significant to consider, and that's a big event. And they weren't even around when it happened, and now they're adults.
Yeah, my son's 20, on the cusp of 21, and he was born
the year
before 9/11, and it's just like, that is just crazy. It's crazy.
The thing, so there's this whole new way that lives are built.
Right.
And the way mine was built was assuming that I was going to have to go after and get and earn everything. And I don't want to say that people today, or kids born today, don't have that mentality, but a lot of it now is show over do.
Over substance, maybe?
Yeah, show over substance is probably a better way to put it.
Okay.
Because it's profitable. There's that. It's profitable.
Yeah, it can be.
It can be profitable.
Yeah.
And not only can it be profitable, it's you don't need the tech skills anymore. That was the big thing when we were coming up. The whole world's going to be
100%.
Technology.
100%.
You need to do computer science and tech and computer engineering. Well, the infrastructure is built. The infrastructure is built so well, it doesn't really need us. And that's, it needs someone, right? But it doesn't need nearly as many people. I mean, the machine learning app is here's how far we've come. This blew my mind, right? So one of the things I do is I like to learn languages. I like to put my mind and really, I mean, so putting together the Spanish I know and the Portuguese I picked up. Now I have a pretty firm base in the Romance languages, and Italian is effectively Spanish with an accent. Like, when you hear it, it's crazy. Like, the written language is really different enough to where you can see the difference. But if you're listening to Italian and you don't know it's Italian, you might just assume it's someone from Argentina speaking.
Right.
Agreed. So I said, okay, let me do something different. So now I'm digging in to Russian, and I'm building a Slavic base for the Slavic languages in my brain and see how that works. Here's how crazy. So I'll hear a phrase, because I'm using Pimsleur plus some stuff written, because the grammar. So I'm using a lot of resources.
Right.
But when I want to practice speaking and getting my pronunciation correct, I don't need another person anymore. And that was a big deal to be able to do that.
That's
like
crazy.
to get on iTalki, that was a big deal. Now the voice recognition stuff is so good that I can practice, and it'll hear me, and it'll hear a difference. I was on the way over here, I was working on the word for where, yeah, right? And that's a weird combination. We don't have that in English. It's the closest thing we would have is GDY, Y-A, and the Y would be kind of devoiced. But it could hear the difference. And I was
That's
like, why does
amazing.
it keep making a mistake? Oh, and I would listen back. And it's because I wasn't putting the stress on the right letters.
Okay.
So once I got that, he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, now I know it because after seeing that and it comes back to me. So when I go to the person I practice conversation with, they'll be able to hear me better because the computer can make it out.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It blew my mind.
It's amazing.
Like, we're in a crazy world. But all of that, all right. I mean, that's how I used my time in the pandemic. I took a very intensive
Remember you told me, yeah.
2 hour. Oh, right. I was taking that. Yeah. Finished it. And like, I mean, now my brain is, you know how you know something? Like I look at different things and your brain is weird, man. Like it's not, I don't have to remember. Like I just look at it and I know that, mesa, puerta, taza, agua. Like I just, and I don't have to think about it. Mm-hmm. And you would think you have to. And like, because I'm far from fluent. Like, it's not like that's, no, eventually your brain just somehow makes a connection to words, and I want to learn more about
Is that the
works.
result of learning, or is that still the learning process?
I think eventually you just, the way we do language in our brain is not, it's not the way we memorize stuff. That's what I figured out.
Okay.
That I think the closest word we have for the process is memorization, but that misses the mark.
Okay.
Because it's not like I can't forget the word for face, for example. Like it's kara, right? I can't forget that.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe one day I could if I didn't say something for years, but it's stuck, and there's no reason for me to have two ways to say that in my brain from a survival, or maybe from a survival standpoint. Mm-hmm. But from where I'm at, I don't speak Spanish every day. I'm not around.
Right.
I don't live in like Southern California or Florida or whatever.
Right.
I pretty much have to seek out opportunities, but because I did 2 months intensive, I did like it's lodged now. Like I know
It's a reflex almost.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. It's a reflex. I developed a new reflex, and once you do that, it's fun. So I'm just doing the same thing with Russian now. And,
it's crazy.
And it's
crazy.
It's very different.
Do they blend together in your head? I mean, is there not at all? That's amazing.
And here's what's cool about this. And I figured this out a little while ago. It's like, so I don't know if you have any other languages in your mind, but when I first started learning, I get excited when I see somebody would speak, and I'd say something in Spanish to them, and they look at me like, what? And I'm like, oh, my pronunciation's terrible still. What I realized was happening is that they're expecting me to say something in English, so they're listening for English.
Got it.
So
Got it.
When I ask them something out of the ordinary, like if I'm in a store and I think I hear an accent, I say "Cuánto cuesta?" and they're gonna look at me like, because there's no indication that we should be switching to Spanish.
Right.
Their brain's not there. But the minute you make the switch,
right,
and you go, okay, let me put on my Spanish brain, then everything is back and forth. And that's kind of the key to fluency, and that's why they talk about moving away from translating your mind, which is so weird. You're like, well, I have to just learn a new language system. Yeah, but it's not hard. Like the way the brain does it, I'm not an expert at all. But I know that what I'm doing with this is not the same way I learned math, for example.
Okay.
Right? And talking to people who have learned other languages, I know that what they're doing, it's the same process. Okay. Obviously, with different ranges of talent and ability, like anything else, but it's not memorization. I don't know what I mean. It starts with memorization, but eventually it becomes something else.
The whole discussion of memorization is so interesting because so much of conventional learning for children, for adults, for the college experience, so much of it is weighted on that one quote-unquote skill set of memorization. And in reality, that's only part of the learning equation. Am I right?
And probably, this is just from my experience, probably the smallest part. Like you need. I think about the way I learned math, and I was not a good student in high school. This is all very recent when I went back as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
I built the basic blocks, right? You know, your arithmetic, and then depending on how far you want to go, you got to build another base, which is algebra. But once you have those bases and you can kind of think like this, you know, I can look and go, okay, I know here's this problem and I'm missing these things. And I know the relationship between this thing and that thing. So let me see if I can find some formula or create one based on what I'm observing to fill in the blank and figure out the missing information. That requires me to know individual parts, but eventually I start creating with said parts. It's the exact same way in language. You don't learn millions of words. This is one of the things they talk about in other Romance languages. There's a high degree of verb inflection, right?
Right.
And what that means is like there's a bunch of different endings and ways that you can use a verb. You know?
Right.
Present tense, present plural, present progressive, and all the endings for that. Right. Past tense, imperfect, perfect, all this.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't learn every single thing. Instead, what you learn is those endings, and then the stem, and then whenever you need to change, your brain is able to quickly pull them together.
Okay.
You don't have to memorize 50 verbs.
Right.
You can memorize one, and then but you do know all the forms. But then once you know one base, you're like, okay, I got it. I know how to say walked, will walk, was walking, had walked.
Right. Right.
Will walk in the future. Yeah. Well.
I get it. I just think that when you talk about mathematics, that's something obviously that builds. So there's a learning involved there. I'm not really convinced if you're a history major, there's lessons in history you can extrapolate on.
Okay.
I get that part. When you think about how lessons or how circumstances could have been or what you can pull from something, but when you're young, very young, and in grade school and in high school, it really is about just memorizing stuff for a test, right?
Yep. And you see this. I have a chess tutor as well, right? Chess teacher.
What don't you do?
And he talks about how it's very hard to, if not impossible, to get a player above a certain strength before a certain age.
Okay.
Because like kids will figure out the tactics and they'll be great combination players. You can go really far with that.
Okay.
But there comes a point where you need to understand abstract lessons where the result is not an immediate order effect, and you're not just calculating what happens. Where there are strategic moves, where they are, even the computer kind of is a little confused on how to assign its strength unless it's seen it enough times. Okay. You can't teach abstract chess to a kid, but I think he said like before 8 or 9. They just can't get certain concepts.
Okay.
It won't like waiting moves, for example. It's like why would we wait? Like instead of just attack, because it's easy to see the result of an attack and you can calculate what will happen. But a waiting move where there are many different branches and you're just trying to play to put yourself in a better strategic position, that is not something that I guess we just can't do it yet.
Okay.
Not to a certain point.
Okay.
Just like I talked to my buddy who has kids, and he's always, it's fascinating to hear his reflection because he's a mathematician and a programmer.
Okay.
And it's fascinating to hear like how he talks about some of the things or some of his experience with the kids. And one of the things he told me, he tells me there's certain ideas they just can't get, so you have to figure out how to deal with it, even though them not understanding that idea is a problem. And one of the great examples he gave me, he goes, he has 2 sons, and when they're playing Minecraft, the older one tries to say we won't have a certain rule, and the younger one can't. He just can't. I didn't know what that means because he goes and does the thing anyway.
Right.
Because the whole idea of rules, I guess, doesn't really click. into a certain point, and then he gets it and it's like, oh, okay, and then all of a sudden he's like, okay, we won't use this kind of add-on, or we won't use that.
It's like a boundary is not
Right.
acknowledgeable to them, right? They can't grasp the concept of a boundary or rule or something.
And it's like when they figure out that they can hold a thought in their mind but say something completely different.
Got it.
When they figure out they can lie.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
But to a certain point, they can't figure that out. They
That's
don't. They
rationalizing
don't
that,
know
right?
what lying is. It's
Got
just,
it.
Yeah, and hearing that it's like that for all learning. You know, there are certain things you just don't have the hardware.
Got it.
And I think our learning when we're younger, that's what happens. That's
Carry it too far though, because once they get into their teenage, they're able
well,
to
because
do
that's
that.
easy.
Okay.
That's it's very easy
Got
to
it.
memorize.
Got it.
And this is one of the problems. This is one of the reasons why Americans are absolutely terrible with learning languages and math, because to a certain point it's memorization.
Then
To
it
move to
takes
the next
work.
level,
Then it's work.
I wouldn't even say it's work. Well, you know what it is? It's work on the teacher's part. It's a lot more work on the teacher's part, because now what you have to do is you have to take somebody. You've removed kind of, if you do this, this will happen. If you do that, that this is right, that's wrong. You've removed the clear conditional feedback. Now it is very much. Now it's multifaceted. Okay, we'll just use language because that's
Sure.
easy. Now we're talking about creating a response on the fly, telling me that you don't like something and why don't you like it, and you have to create that, and you have to realize you have to become comfortable with the idea of imperfection, because language is imperfect. Even the language we're speaking right now, I'm sure someone would hear my accent and wonder how I'm speaking, versus I might use a word incorrectly, but because of how it works locally, or just what's expected in terms of most English speakers, they're gonna be like, okay, I know what he's saying, I'm not confused. When you treat your academics as a yes or no, right or wrong, that's it, jumping into something like learning a language is going to bug you, because there's so much imperfection, and there's so much that you have to do. It's a very physical thing too. You have
Sure.
to speak differently
is.
and communicate with your body. We don't like that.
It's work, Ed.
And then on top of that, our system is not designed for individual instruction, and I really believe that learning the language requires a decent amount at the beginning, anyhow, individual instruction, or a lot of self-motivation, which is like, okay, like if you can't get individual instruction, the self-motivation, where does that come from? Necessity is a great one. We don't have that in the United States. You can go see this entire country back and forth, and then go other places and never have to use another language.
Right.
I lost my bag in Poland, Warsaw, Poland, like formerly occupied by the Soviets, Poland, and someone spoke English. They were able to at the bag at the counter at the airport, and we were able to figure it out. At the hotel, everybody
That's
spoke
crazy.
English.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
you just don't need to do it. So we don't have the necessity aspect.
Okay.
Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah. Life's gotten easier.
Yeah, it's really gotten easy if you speak English. English, like we on the internet circles that I'm in, we always say, look, if you're from another country, man, you better learn English, because there's not only do the people who speak English occupy, they're not even the largest group on the planet. I think that would be the Chinese, or people who speak Hindi. Maybe,
Okay.
but point is, or Spanish, right?
Or Spanish, maybe.
Yeah, English is like fourth, But
Got
in
it.
terms of like the earning power of the countries that speak English, yeah, if you want to make money, you need to speak English.
It's kind of like why the American dollar is still the heavyweight. I mean, it's still the standard, right? And-
Yeah, I talk about this all the time with Anna, who is like involved in travel, has done a lot of stuff
Right.
with her old job, and now that's what she does for like her business.
Right.
And we talk about like everyone's like, oh man, you better learn Chinese. You know, the Chinese are taking over across the world. I'm like, nah, slow down, because it's not as simple as that
Right.
kind of leverage. That
Right.
is a brutally difficult language, and the culture is very different.
No question.
If you can't, one of the reasons why America has, for lack of a better word, infected the rest of the world is our culture is very easy to export. It appeals, and that's one of the reasons why in 250 years, 260 years,
Think about that.
we have leapfrogged countries that have been in existence for
speck of time.
over 1,000 years old.
Right.
When I was in Paris, I did a tour of the sewers, and I was just thinking, because there's a whole there's a sewer museum. It's the coolest thing.
Is it like that's not the same as the bones down there?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm down there, and there's like different displays like in a museum. And one of the things they say is like, these are the same sewers that inspired Victor Hugo to write Les Miserables.
Right.
And you got to pause for a minute and think. That means that the sewers in Paris are 3 to 4 times older than the country of the United States.
Correct.
And one of the reasons we leapfrog is it's just, first of all, we've got the benefit of looking at what everyone else did, and we didn't do it. Like there's no there was no revolution against the
Right.
monarchy,
Right.
which like transformed. Every country has had one.
Right.
We never had one because we looked and said, let's not go down that path. Okay. And slavery didn't even last that long for the formation of the United States.
Correct.
The formation of the United States, like we'll say 1781, I think is when they officially signed everything. Though we celebrate 1776, but and then slavery was gone in 100 years. How many other countries? I watched a documentary on Russia. They were fighting. They couldn't figure out to keep the serfdom system or not because like all the people with the power were like, do we really want to get rid of free labor like that? Like, what is his name? Thomas Sowell talks about the unique thing about slavery in America was, there were 2 things. It was the first time that the slaves were a different race, which is because we could pull from other people.
Right.
But it was also the first place where there was a concerted effort to end it to the point where it almost divided the country and kept its formation from occurring. That's really significant to think about.
Well, there wasn't any precedent anywhere else in the world of that happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some cultures, slavery was generational, hundreds and hundreds of years. And I guess if you believe history, maybe thousands of years in Egypt, right? I mean,
for sure. So it just we leapfrogged that too. There's so much leapfrogging in the culture.
Yeah.
And that culture, it's appealing. These free speech ideas, that's appealing to explore.
Sure it is.
If you look at the propaganda, media, whatever, right? Interchangeable words.
Yeah.
That's pumped out of the United States about what the United States looks like and what it's like to be here. People still think it's great to come here.
I know. No matter how much dysfunction our media houses are showing over, say, the last 4 or 5 years, we're still people aren't rushing to get into Guatemala.
Exactly. I'm in Portugal. People, and they have I thought their country was
Right.
in many ways how they treat the citizens superior.
Right.
And I'm not talking about something that is debatable, like the prevalence of racism in the system. You can look at stats and argue either way. I'm talking about something very objective, like my cost of medical care. When I went to the hospital, I spent my last birthday in the hospital in the ER, and I got my bill, and it was 130-something euros. Nuts, right? ER, they
crazy.
strung me up to an IV.
That's crazy.
Everything. I'm talking about the quality of food, the quality of life, the cost of education, everything, like things like that, and our culture, while there's trade-offs to everything, there's no perfect system, but one of the things that really makes our stuff stand out, and why it's going to be very difficult, I think, for there to be like some type of mass adoption of the Chinese system in the West, people just feel free here.
Yeah.
You know, they feel free. They feel like they can make it. They feel like it can happen. The more languages I study, the more I realize how simple English is. Like it's like a big mallet to hit a nail.
Before.
Like we can't. The Romance language is just richer. Like you can talk about things with more detail and with more precision. You know, we don't have that precision in English. And you know, an example of this is you know, I want to ask you a question. The verb in that is ask, right? Versus, you know, let me ask you for some help, or can I ask for something that you're gonna give me? And there's two different verbs: to inquire versus to request. Now, at a higher level, we speak like that, sure, but I can just ask, and it's clear. You don't need a bigger vocabulary. You know,
Got it.
I know Eric McKenna, or I know the Eric McKenna podcast. Those are two different verbs. One is to know someone. The other is to have knowledge or familiarity of like a thing.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
The example my teacher gave was like, do you know Shakira, or do you know Shakira? Like, do you know Shakira personally, or do you know of the artist Shakira?
Right.
And we don't have to think about that in our
That's
language.
a good point.
It's just contextual clear. And Spanish isn't that difficult compared to the Romance languages, and that's the difference. That's how simple English is, and that's probably one of the reasons why so many people speak. I mean, that, and like, you know, the UK went everywhere, and then
the
America
British.
came next with soft imperialism. But
No doubt. That's a good way of putting soft imperialism. That's the first time that's ever been said. To my ears. That's good. That's good. Earlier, you made the point, and I want to circle back to it. You said that when we were younger, we were hearing things like we were going to need so many more computer scientists in society, and computer learning was going to be at the forefront of everything we do. And those who built the current framework that we use today, whether it's networking, whether it's social networking, it really doesn't require having all that background. It's very user-friendly. So did we end up, the system really doesn't need more technicians. The system right now really just needs participants.
Right. And
Wouldn't you think?
And here's the thing, man. I just wrote about this. I have a really nice website.
You do?
You do? I really love it. And one of the best things about my website is its age.
Meaning?
I've had that iteration of the website. I remember I started writing. I was like sending someone handwritten things from basic training to post. I went to basic in 2013, so we'll say I started that website in 2012. So the site's almost 9 years old.
Is it WordPress based?
No. We moved to when I got a new developer, or not new, when I got a developer who's really helped me bring stuff along. It's built on Cloud Cannon.
Got it.
All right. But the idea of me mentioning it's been around for 9 years.
Right.
That's 9 years of content.
I get it.
And the search engines are like, he's been around for a while. He's probably legit. Let's give his articles a bump or whatever. When you have, if you look at the bigger YouTube channels, I mean, time is a factor. Now, where they put that time in differs, and certainly you can, if you have a certain topic, you can jump. But to make up for time, I've noticed you got to have productivity. You have to be prolific. Either way, getting there first and then being consistent, that's unbeatable.
No question.
If you're consistent, you're there first, and you're prolific, you're ahead of everyone.
Yeah.
in terms of content participation, content, with how monetizing the content. Some of the guys I look up to, like James Clear, Mark Manson, Pat Flynn, Nat Eliason, even James Altucher, who focuses more on a podcast format.
Right.
But just time, you get the time in, and you start doing it, and in 10 years, all of a sudden, it's like everyone tries to flood in once they see how successful it looks, but they're not going to make it.
Is that a good lesson for life in general, though? I mean, that's a good lesson in life, too, because whether it was learning a new skill for me, changing careers midway, it really always seemed to be about consistency, diligence, but consistency. And over time, you can make all of the mistakes. As long as you're consistent and going at it in a genuine fashion, you're going to be successful. Yeah. That's the beauty of the American system, quite frankly. I think that if you put earnest effort in consistently and use your head, you're going to make it almost in spite of yourself. You know?
Yeah, it's really cool that way. Like, but here's the thing about this, right? It is cool, and I think it's the best part about being alive today. I think it's always been how things have occurred. We just now have so many. Everything is faster and it's safer, so you can bump into the wall at 90 miles per hour and go, okay, that's not the way to go, and turn left, and that's not the end of things.
Right.
As opposed to before technology, you bump into the wall like 50 miles per hour and you'd be wrecked.
There's no question.
But people want it faster, and that's why that's the trade-off. This comes back to what I was saying about when you come from the pre-internet era. Mm-hmm. All of this is a dream. Like I wake up every day and I think this is magic. Yeah. Like that's how I feel a lot of times.
I do too,
because I remember when it was and I'm not that old. We're not that old. We're not talking about freaking phonographs.
I got 20 years on you, pal. Trust me. I really remember the pre-internet days. Like, I mean, I remember getting my parents' car as a 16-year-old in like 83, 84. They didn't know where I was going. They were hoping I got back, but that wasn't tethered.
And you may not have known. There was no GPS.
There was nothing, man. There was all the way to like 94, 95.
This stuff is insane. But it's so fast that everyone wants it that fast.
Now, yeah.
And so their mindset is very instant gratification.
Yes.
I continue to say the people who have the biggest advantage in this world are early millennials, the people who spent the majority of their life chasing one path, that path was to be expected of everyone around them in different forms. But then these opportunities opened up and they saw it and said, okay, let me take what I'm doing here and apply it here. And they're not too old to be unrelatable, but not too young to not be taken seriously. And all of that coalesces, and they have such an advantage. I think about all the guys I know getting after it. I mean, there are a few kids. I call them. I mean, I'm at the point now where I call anyone younger than 25 a kid. I mean, if they get mad about it, whatever, right? But there are a few kids that they're on the right path and figuring it out, but they're not going to take the necessary. The odds of them taking the necessary risk are lower because everything is about the show. Yeah, it's about the presentation.
The mindset's different.
Like, I mean, I think how many. I remember I have a video of my first amateur fight, and it looks horrible because no one really was filming on phones then. My first amateur fight was 2006. I don't know if I actually don't think it was a camera video. I think it was someone that actually had a camera.
Got it.
And caught it and just uploaded it.
Yeah.
And most of my fights, most of my career, there's no
high quality
amateur
video
stuff.
Right, right.
And even to my professional career, it was very hard to find video of people. It wasn't a thing. Now, if you don't have video, you're like, what are you doing? How are you going to build yourself? Yeah. Because they get it. Because that's the trade-off. It's very easy to market now.
No question.
Like, no question. Anybody who really, like, you should, I bet, you know how we used to, how they said that after a certain age, like, they're not even teaching typing anymore, I'd imagine, because if you don't know how to type, I don't know how you got to middle school at this point, okay?
Right.
Nowadays, typing for us is going to be what marketing is for these kids. They're just going to understand. They're not even going to know what's called marketing. We're just in the attention economy.
Yes.
That's all we're in now.
Yes.
All right. The trade-off to that is that the product is going to suffer.
No question.
Because,
you're seeing it now.
Because now you don't have to, and this is exacerbated by certain things that I benefit from, right? There are no gatekeepers,
right?
For example. And then there being no gatekeepers, that is a fantastic thing.
There's no question.
If you have a good idea,
absolutely,
you can get out there, put it out there.
That's the beauty of the web.
But there's no gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, there's good. This progress has good and bad to it, and sometimes they're simultaneous.
I'm a big proponent of the idea that there's not really any absolutely good or bad situation. There are just trade-offs, and you got to decide what trade-offs you're comfortable with. Which ones you like as they say, what's your shit sandwich gonna be like?
Right.
Because everything is gonna have a negative. You got to figure out what negative is best for you.
Right.
And I personally really, because I think about this. I was listening to one of the guys that I like to listen to, and he said something that really echoed with me, because I've thought the same thing. If I was born 20, 30 years earlier, and that recently, we're not even talking about 100 years ago. If I was born 20, 30 years earlier, man, who knows what I'd be doing? I know what I wouldn't be doing. Running this, at least not at this age, at 38 or 36. I don't know why. That's the first time I ever jumped my age higher.
You don't want to hurry it, pal. It's going to come on its own. Trust me.
But I wouldn't at the age of 36 be living a location independent lifestyle. At least not off of my writing.
So let's talk about that. So I'll share this with you. A little personal, but I'll share it with you because I want your feedback. I'm 55, and I started an internet guitar business in 98, okay? At that time point, most of the people my age, my friends who I grew up with, my group of people age-wise, were kind of pushing back on the web. They didn't want to learn something new because we at that time, we were 38, 37 years old, something like that, or no, early 30s at that time. And the web got a lot of pushback because it took work. You had to want to learn it then. You remember what it was like when it first came on. I was fascinated by it. That has served me well. The problem for me is that those folks that I grew up with, my age demographic, most of them did not embrace the technology portion. They came on later through social media because it was user-friendly. But they don't have the background of building websites well before we're, in the late 90s, doing e-commerce, in involving early video in 2003, 4, 5, and 6 for marketing. All those things I experienced didn't make me special. It really kind of isolated me, though, often from people that I grew up with, because my age demographic was not involved in the web at that time in the way I was doing it from a e-commerce kind of thing. Does that make any sense?
Right.
So I think that's why, as I go forward, I end up associating myself with a lot of younger people only because I find more commonality with their familiarity with society. Does that make any sense?
Right. You adapted.
I learned it.
I won't even say adapted, because I think everyone has been forced to adapt. Right. You embraced it, and because you embraced it, and society embraced it as a whole, now you speak the language that is spoken.
Right.
Here's a good, a real world example of this. If you go to Portugal is just the example I have, and I think we're going to use Portugal or Poland, right?
Okay.
A different way. In Portugal, all the young people know English. All the older people, older than I think 50, their second language is French.
Interesting.
Because at one point that was the language of diplomacy, as they say. That's what everyone was.
Right.
So if you were like, oh, this English thing isn't going to catch on.
Got it.
Right?
Good
then
analogy.
you were going to have a big problem.
Good analogy.
Imagine being someone occupied where I was at in Warsaw, and all the people older than, when did the Berlin Wall fall? Not 90? 89. 89. So about 35 years ago, or about 30 years ago, about 30 years ago, well, there's all the people in Poland who are like older than 40, they speak Russian as their second language.
Of course.
All right. And everyone after is English. But imagine if you were somebody that said, you know what, this English thing, man, this might, I don't know, I'm going to get what I can get while I can.
That would have been me in there at that time frame. Because I just was confronted with this new technology, and I saw a monetary opportunity in my head. Like, if I use this vehicle, I can sell product online to people in different states, pay no sales tax. You know, there was advantages to learning e-commerce in my unique little niche, and I just went for it. I can't tell you why I did it. It just seemed like a good path to go, and I did it. But those in my sphere of my age group thought I was insane, that I would quit my job and go do this crazy thing on this internet thing and sell on this thing called eBay. That's part of my story, was that I did take that leap. And then as it progressed, so when social media came, people that were 15 years younger than me that were really entrenched in it, I could really understand the way they thought. You see what I mean? And that really had an effect on the way, and it's had a larger effect on who is in my sphere now, because they tend to be younger for the only reason that I was in their environment. Does that make any sense? It's an odd dichotomy.
100% sense.
Okay.
Because, you know, dude, a very similar thing happened to me. My close friends, the ones from high school, and this is a significant reason I mention that.
Okay. My
close friends, the ones from high school, and some of the ones I met a little after, they, for the longest time, did not get what I was doing with social media. To them, it was just a kind of a joke, kind of a way to poke fun.
Right.
Until you ever have someone, you get to a point where your success, if you're just gonna live in normally, is not easy to disguise.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I don't have to go to work, but I'm always in a different place. It's like, okay,
lifestyle,
right? The lifestyle's, and then it shifts. It's like, this is what this person's been up to, and I broke it down to my friend one day, because every now and then someone will make a crack about it, and I go, you got to understand something. Let's say my collective audience, I rounded it, we figured out redundancies, it's probably about 100,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not huge. Like, that is not, there are people who have 1 million.
It isn't broader than that. It sure seems to be.
I figure when I factor in the people who, I figure my biggest count is my Twitter following. Okay. 137,000.
Okay.
And then from there I go, okay, well, some of those people are going to my website and my mailing list. So I just round it down to make the numbers easy. It might be a little higher.
Fair enough.
So we work with 100,000. I said to my buddy, I said, you don't understand something. Think about it this way. All I have to do is convert 1% of those to spend $20 a month on average. And I'm living better than you'll ever live, working harder for longer.
Mm-hmm. For somebody else.
Right. And when I made that point, that you could see that, they kind of got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you could see because what it creates is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not one of those things you can just hop on,
right,
and get and do.
That's a good life lesson. See, we need more of that though, because I think a lot of the younger generation after you, there's a lot of that instant gratification. They see things, Ed. People might look at you and think that happened overnight. See,
right?
That's delusional thinking.
People man. I think about, because the way I count when my journey started, I always say 27, right? Well, 28. Well, when I got sober, that's when I say my journey started.
Right.
Well, the reality though is, one of the things that really helped to propel me, I started boxing when I was 23.
Right.
That there was no news or fanfare about it, but slowly but surely, build opportunity. That it sets up other opportunity. But really, I'll say the culmination when I really put to work, 28. Let's just use 28.
Okay.
36 now.
Okay.
So what is that? That's 8 years.
Right.
That's 8 years. And when I started, this is really important to note. I have 0 college credits. I've only got 3 pro fights, and they're like small venue stuff, nothing.
Right.
Websites got like a few pieces of content, but nothing that people are like finding. Certainly, I'm working at a bank.
Right.
For I think I was getting $11 an hour, maybe. You got to start somewhere, but I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna write, I'm gonna work on that, and it's not easy and it's not short, but at that point though, there was a bit of a conscious idea. I was like, okay, well, this social media thing is here. Let's but at that point, it was still just more about growing my website. I mean, no idea, like no idea. But now I kind of see it. I have an idea of where I want to go and what I want to do, and it just sets up opportunity. Right. You just keep setting up opportunities.
Yeah, it really, and I have to laugh when the instant gratification thing is so visible. When you look at a younger generation, it's just take a couple pictures, and I think they've got poor examples to look at for that stuff. They're looking at, I don't know, they're looking at internet superstars or Instagram superstars or people that are using that look at me thing and monetizing it, but not really understanding the infinitesimally small percentage of people that actually make it. No one's around them telling them.
Survivor's bias is a real MFer, man. Like,
yeah, I get it.
People like I use that example. I flip it.
Okay.
I talk about like the benefits of how I grew up and where I grew up.
Right.
And really how a lot of it set me up, not just from a here's a good story to tell standpoint, but the mindset and the relatability and how that ties in everything I'm doing. And I really think one of the best things that happened to me, as weird as it sounds, was being born into a high risk environment and neighborhood.
Right.
With that said, I would never say to somebody, you know what, you want your kid to be a superstar?
Yeah.
Have him born in the projects, give her everything, go live on public assistance for a little while. No, because most people don't make it out of that situation.
Right.
Those are the stats.
Right.
You can't ignore the stats, man.
No. We ignore math too much in this society.
Any more than you can go, okay, how many people are going to make it here? How many people are going to do that?
Right.
And they have great stats about this. We'll just talk about, we'll just use the Twitter following because that's kind of where it started.
Okay.
Like less than 1% of the accounts on Twitter have more than 2,000 followers. So to have one with 100, almost 150, that's not going to be you, and you shouldn't anticipate for it to be.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to take a risk.
Right.
Or rather, here's a better way to look at it: the longer the shot, the more time you're probably going to have to invest to get to it. The more risks you're going to have to take, and the bigger opportunity costs you're going to have to pay.
That's a good way of putting it.
When you look at it that way, when you change the conversation from, okay, I see this person doing this, I can do it too, to, okay, that looks like it's pretty successful. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is like a 9 in my perfect life. Let's prepare to give up 9 years. And not 9 safe years. 9 years where I'm like this close. I saw this funny statement the other day. It's either food stamps or a Lambo. Those kind of years where you might have to take a job. I think about some of the odd jobs I had to box as an amateur.
Yeah.
I worked at a homeless. I have a great article about this too. I worked at a homeless shelter for a little while. It was crazy. Worked at a homeless shelter. I worked at Starbucks. Worked at a bank. I did security at a strip club once.
Does that kind of mentality still work now, though? Not work.
Oh.
Is it still prevalent now?
I don't think it was ever prevalent.
Like, what do you mean?
What I think most people, and if you look at the outcome, if you look at the numbers, this reflects, or rather, I can look at the numbers and they support this conclusion.
Okay.
Most people have always sought the safest way to go. They've sought to optimize their life for how did I put this? The word
Comfort,
is like escaping me.
Convenience.
Well, what they teach us is that every system seeks the most energy efficient. I'll never forget this. How my professor said it. Every system seeks the most energy efficient configuration, and what that means is what the least amount of energy you need to survive and function. Every system seeks that, and we are no different. We are a system, a complex system with many different parts: digestive, physical, nervous, right? But we're still a system, and we seek homeostasis. We seek to maintain homeostasis, right? In this sense, okay. Right. It takes a very unique outlier, by definition, person to go, things are comfortable. Let us make them uncomfortable in the pursuit of more.
It's so true. It's so true.
It's like I talked about this for a while ago with a friend of mine about how today all you really need if you want to have to be happy, less than $1,000 in a mid-range city will make you okay. That's rent with 3 roommates, Netflix, and some utilities. Riding your bike, because you're too cool to pollute the environment, and what you get some wine and some cheap food, and that's okay with most people. Like that, to me, that sounds miserable.
You think it is?
Oh.
You think?
Look at the Netflix viewership.
I guess.
You know what Netflix said? They said they're on record saying this. They're big. You know who their biggest competitor is? Sleep.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And that.
What a business model.
Right.
You and I should be so lucky.
Not expensive. Their biggest competitor is a bodily function you have to do.
That's insane.
People are fine with this because it's not uncomfortable. That's the whole thing about homeostasis, or seeking the most energy efficient configuration. It's not about maximizing gain, it's about minimizing loss.
Okay.
And if you can get away from discomfort, that level that you reach to get away from discomfort, you're going to stay there. If you look at the trajectory of most people, and this is that use that 8-year span that I talked about from when I got sober to where I'm now. I can look at everyone in my life, and whether they were making $80,000 a year or $8,000 a year, they're still roughly about the same in terms of their development, because linear growth is normal, or rather not. Our linear progress is normal. Right. What's not normal is a curve, and a curve signifies acceleration. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to maintain that speed,
right?
But if you take a slice of what should happen is you should take a slice of your life, one point, and then a slice 10 years later or 10 years prior, overlap them, and there should be noticeable differences.
Right.
I think that phenomena all but disappears after the age of 25. You take someone whose life at 27, overlay it with someone's life at 37, and the the specifics might be different, like where they live or whatever, or their exact job, but how different is their salary? How different? How improved is their physique?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
How much more do they know? How many books have they read? How many places have they been? Right. How many risks have they taken? How many new skills or hobbies have they put in their toolkit? Because to people like me and like you, that comfort is really uncomfortable. Whether we had to just sitting right, it feels nice, but at some point it's whoa, I'm gonna die soon. Maybe I should learn something else. There's no reason for me to be dealing with Russian. I don't even think. I know Americans can go, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not as attractive as going to if there was a reason to learn Spanish, but even still, not really. because they speak English everywhere.
Right.
But
you don't have to travel.
There's no reason to be in shape right now. I'm not competing, but I still get out there.
You hold yourself to a different standard.
You hold yourself to a different standard.
Yeah.
And that part of that standard is to always be raising your standard.
Amen.
You know? And
Amen.
that is not normal.
So was it always not normal going back to the origin of man? Have we always been lazy, or you think it's exacerbated the last year,
Here's
10
what I
years,
think.
20 years?
You get rid of. All right, so back to the Isaac Newton conversation.
Right.
I don't know if this actually made it on the podcast, but we were talking about Isaac Newton and all of his accomplishments at the age of 23 during the pandemic.
Right.
They call that his miracle year, the year that calculus was codified.
The year to plague, right?
The year that the laws of mechanics were codified, and the optics laws.
Newtonian mechanics, right?
Yeah, Newtonian mechanics. Right. Side note of trivia.
Right.
From like the year 1666 to like 1910, there aren't really any advances in what we know of physics. Okay, so like I can't remember the exact year, but in the 1800s, Michael Faraday figures out electromagnetism.
Right.
But for the most part, that still follows the rules of mechanics.
Right.
It's not until Einstein and special relativity that we jump into the realm of modern physics. One of the essays I had to write was, when did modern physics start? And I guess like the real argument is the McPherson experiment to prove that light maintained the same speed and no matter where it was at. But the point of me bringing that up is that for like for almost 300 years, there were no advances in physics, right? And until modern physics. But I think I forgot my point that I was making.
Well, I asked you, were we always lazy?
Oh, right. Well, and why did I bring that up? Well, Isaac Newton also came from a family with some money. Right?
Okay.
So that's one of the
Did not
reasons
know
why
that.
he can go to university. That's
Got
one
it.
of the reasons he can study and do these things.
Got it.
Because he doesn't have to toil in the fields all day.
Like just
to feed
sitting under an
himself,
apple tree, right?
right? And people forget that a lot of advances in society, for the most part, they've always come from people who had excess resources.
They had the
Most
opportunity.
humans,
Had the opportunity.
most humans were toiling fields, and because there was no refrigeration, they had to build their home. There was no mass market construction. You were buying it.
Right.
You really had to survive. So the short answer is we don't know because they had to do it.
Got it.
What we do know is that organisms seek the most energy efficient configuration, and you don't have to hunt for your food. If you get sick, you go to the hospital. You don't even have to cook your own food if you don't want to. You don't have to grow it. You don't have to build your shelter.
Or kill the animal.
Right?
I mean,
It is a very.
yeah.
You don't have to look for water.
Yeah.
I mean, half the thing. Imagine that. Like, there's bottles of water right here.
For next to nothing. For next to nothing.
Okay, right. So I think this has probably always been the nature of people. It's just
Okay.
that now, because people are no different than any other organism in this sense. They
Got
still
it.
follow the same rules of thermodynamics.
Got it.
Or we'll call this like sociodynamics and homeostasis. We're always trying to maintain the least stressful configuration. We really don't like upsetting things for better or worse, right? And if you can give people like what someone says like, okay, why hasn't there been like a revolution in America? So if it's so corrupt, and I believe there's a lot of corruption, but you know why there hasn't been a revolution? One of the big reasons why they're never going to be. It's freaking comfortable. Who wants to give up watching Netflix? Who wants to give up everything we have? It's great. It's not. It's just not that bad. In other words,
there's
right?
not enough people that are willing to go through the discomfort of a revolution.
Right. It's not like in Paris when the food was rotten, or in Moscow when they couldn't grow anything. You know, these things
Bastille Day.
these things. You know, you need a really you need discomfort.
Yeah, exactly right. That's exactly right.
If you look at the country over the past summer, the closest I think we've gotten to even a possibility of that in a long time. What was going on? People couldn't go to shows. They were tired of being locked in their homes. They couldn't earn money, so now that's bad. And then there were no distractions. The sports were gone. And people were like, there's a lot of things fucked up. We should do something about it. And then what they start doing, occupying cities. You know,
wasn't real thought out. That
have to be thought out.
It wasn't thought out very well.
Because you know why? Because
reactionary.
it's new, right?
Yeah.
If conditions had persisted, they would have figured it out.
Yeah.
And not only would they have figured it out, but the discomfort would have grown, and they would have gained more support. I am not of the belief that there is some crazy conspiracy to keep people fat and lazy. I think if you just look at what makes money, these things make money and people enjoy them.
Yeah.
That's why boycotts generally don't work anymore. You could boycott a bus line in the 50s into letting black people ride. Because there wasn't no Ubers.
Right.
Most people didn't have cheap, transportation car. You could do that. You can't boycott nothing anymore, man. Like, people crack me up when they talk about, like, they're gonna boycott Disney. They just fired I can't even remember her name, but I guess she was the star of Mandalorian. They're like, we're gonna boycott. They're like, so what? Because what's gonna happen? For every one you boycott, there's gonna be another supporter that shows up, because that's the advantage of technology. You got to do something real heinous to actually get canceled.
Yeah, let's talk about that cancel culture for a second. Is the cancel culture a thing? Is that really a thing? Or are we just making making this up?
I had a really good debate with a guy who has fairly different ideals than me, but you find a way to exist.
Sure.
And he said something that really kind of changed my mind on it, or at least got me to think deeply about it.
Okay.
He said, cancel culture is made up. It's not real. It's just when people use their free speech in a way that runs counter to what you want them to do. He said specifically when free speech runs counter to conservative desires. But I interpreted that to a bigger point.
Okay.
That when we use it, it's support. When the other team uses it, it's cancel culture. And how many people are actually canceled, right?
Sometimes it makes it more powerful.
What is it? The Streisand effect.
That's exactly right.
Underestimated, misunderstood factor. It's the main reason why Trump got elected and then defeated, in my opinion, is that both times the Streisand effect worked in for his advantage and to his disadvantage. But people aren't I lost my train of thought.
Well, no, I'd say you're talking about cancel culture.
All right, the cancel culture. Right. People aren't, for the most part, in the public sector, doesn't exist. I sincerely believe that. But I thought deeply. Because I don't think there's any absolutes. I think there are shades of gray. And what I also realized was that I read the detailed collection, and I couldn't find it again. It's a tweet that someone put together, a thread of the places in individual jobs where having a different opinion is getting a person fired. And I said, okay. And I'll be the first person to say, if you're gonna get on social media and say some wild shit, you need to, you got to realize.
Well, that's not responsible. That's
by your face, you're associated, and they have to do something.
Absolutely.
But if you just have a different opinion than the masses, that's a problem. When they start firing people, I think the most famous incident of this is the Google situation. Google is firing people who didn't who voted, who let it be known that they voted a certain way. And for the record, let's somewhat of a side note, but I think it's a good sequitur or circle back around. I'm old enough, so I know you're old enough to remember when we had a very good rule. You didn't talk about politics. And
religion
and someone
and
when
money.
When I brought that up, someone said, "Nah, people should be able to do it." And I said, "No, you should expect people to be people." And I think our forefathers understood this to the point where it was a generally accepted rule. It was to the point where, like, I think it was Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle, I can't remember who made this joke, But the joke was like, white people talk about anything, but who to vote for? He's like, so who you vote for, Bob? Whoa, that's too personal. Let's get back to talking about what me and my wife did in bed last night.
I remember that joke. Yeah,
But that's how mainstream that idea was.
Yeah.
How quickly we've changed.
Oh, okay. Give me a pinpoint when it started to turn. What drove that?
I would say when you started to get points for it. Social media made it thing. I mean that's the trade-off, right? There's a very quick way to get attention is to show people
a badge.
Well, not only that, show people not what you're for, but what you're against.
Yeah.
Because
agreed.
If it bleeds, it leads. Because I remember something. This is when I knew in my mind that Trump was going to win the election. This is when it really hit me. And there were some other things where I was like in his favor. But it hit me is that his opposition was just incompetent. They didn't understand the Streisand effect because Trump was coming to Pittsburgh, and the same day Trump was going to be here, Hillary Clinton's daughter, Chelsea Clinton, was gonna be speaking in East Liberty, and the anti-Trump crowd was talking about let's go boycott Trump, and I said, or let's go protest whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking if you guys had any concept of how this attention thing worked, you would be pulling all of your attention and resources to Chelsea Clinton. You would not, because what you're going to do, put the focus on him.
Yeah.
And that's where the cameras are going to go. That's where the attention is going to go. And you're just going to amplify his message.
Oh, yeah.
And worse, and in this situation, worse than amplify, you're going to minimize your support. You're going to minimize the attention your support would get. And when I saw it, I was like, people are just really bad at understanding how this works and how the attention you bring to something or don't bring to it, the effect that it has.
We're so quick to label ourselves. It's so funny because we don't want to be labeled as people. We don't like labels in music. We don't like labels. We want to be independent thinkers. We want to be special and unique and all this stuff. And this is the dichotomy I want to ask you. This is the one question today. I want to make sure I didn't forget to ask you this. The one thing that's happening in society that puzzles the shit out of me, Ed, is the following. I knew when I had my guitar business that I could do really well if I made special guitars, like special runs of guitars, small quantities, because people wanted to buy something that no one else has, or they wanted to feel special. It was part of a whole, I could see it. It was part of the psyche of Americans that we wanted something custom. We wanted that look at me moment. We wanted to brag about it, which it was only exacerbated when social media came because you had a place to do it. But people wanted to feel special. And I think now more than ever, it's a look at me society. We want to be unique, right? But at the same time, we're so quick to join a team, left or right. And rah, 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 boom, bang, our guy, our gal, we're going to support our people. We're going to die on that hill for our beliefs, although, probably they're wrong. We're going to die on that hill, right? How can we have that one part of our psyche that wants that crave that uniqueness, that look at me thing, right? That individuality. Yet at the same time, we capitulate to join teams to feel like we belong. It's so weird to me. Are we one or are we the other? Why? How can we be both simultaneously?
People don't really want to be individuals. At least the majority.
You don't think?
No.
Okay.
I think people want security and comfort more than they want freedom and individuality. 100%. I just.
Do they sell themselves a bill of goods like an illusion of individuality, an illusion of specialness? I mean, don't even. You're saying we really don't want to be special. We want to kind of just fit in.
Yes.
Okay.
Or rather, here's a better way to look at it.
Okay.
Being special and unique is an outcome.
Okay.
And people love outcomes.
If it favors them.
Right. People love favorable outcomes.
Okay.
What they don't enjoy are the processes that they have to go through to achieve the favorable outcome.
Okay.
So what ends up happening, and you got to remember to go through a process like this, you need to take risks. You need to make yourself uncomfortable. You need to stand out and risk being humiliated, etc. Right? It's a risk. But that is part of the process that produces a superior, outstanding outcome.
Okay.
And most people don't want to do that.
All right.
By the idea of equilibrium. They want to stay steady.
Okay.
So they follow movements and positions and join groups that give them this safe feeling of belonging. And that's a really powerful human desire, to feel belonged and feel grouped in. And that really runs counter to the risk-taking idea. Okay, because almost by definition, to be part of a group, you have to conform to the group, and that means you get the security of the group, but now you're not the lone wolf, you're not surviving on your own, whatever, right?
Okay.
Even if that survival is not, even if they don't actually help you, it's just the illusion that you have assistance. Okay. So we've knocked and narrowed that down. When someone says they're an individual, that's just co-signing on the outcome because it sounds cool. It's not really about individuality, right?
Okay.
Your business survived and thrived because to learn guitar, that's not right. That's one of those things. You invest some time, you give them some opportunity costs. You might not make any money with it. You probably won't make any money with it, but it's cool. And then think about the life you have to live to be able to afford a custom guitar.
Okay.
All right.
Good point.
So you're already appealing to somebody. You're already appealing to a different demographic. You're appealing to the individualist.
That's a good point.
Someone taught me early on. It goes, you're going to make money one of two ways. You're going to either sell a high-priced item to a small select number of people, or you're going to sell something
to the masses,
low price to the masses. And those groups have different desires and different functions.
Good point.
When you write copy, when you're selling something specifically to a high level group, to a unique group, to a group that's money, you want to highlight the uniqueness. You want to highlight that the group and what that makes you belong to. When you sell to the masses, you want to talk about the convenience and
the price and the price generally,
right? And price focusing. In fact, here's a cool little activity. You're in real estate, right? This blew my mind when I discovered this.
Okay.
Someone said when you're looking at a listing for a place to live, notice how they describe it.
So true.
The worse the place,
the more lavish the description. Right?
The better the place, the more it's just numbers. We got this much square feet, this many rooms, this many many bathrooms.
Right, because the location and the visuals, the actual photographs, will sell the property. You don't need to say
you don't need the words.
But when you got a dump, it's like,
then you got to start talking up. You're like,
which doesn't work anyways in reality. It's like just silly. If you got a place that's $19,000 on some road by the railroad tracks, and by the time you're done reading the 480 words, it sounds like it's in Mount Lebanon.
Right? You're like, wait a second. And you're looking at these pictures. I remember seeing Craigslist, and you're looking at these pictures, and you're like, something is not right here.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's some integrity issues in real estate descriptions, without a doubt, and I got to watch what I say because I can get fined. But I'm not comfortable often with what I see. Yeah,
right.
I'm not. It's a good example.
But once you recognize that, you're just like, okay, who am I selling to?
Right.
Because the people who understand this, who understand what those numbers, like if you say this place is 2,500 square feet,
right.
The people who understand that are likely going to be able to afford that.
No question.
But if you tell somebody who's coming off a $500 a month rent and they're looking maybe to upsize,
a little more unsophisticated buyer,
right? That's a good way to put it. An unsophisticated buyer. You tell them that like, not only does that not mean anything, once they find out what it means, they're not going to be interested anyway. See, You're selling to two different groups, and that's what I think happens when you see the individuality, the uniqueness versus everybody joining a tribe. Joining a tribe, watch the process.
So it's a comfort thing, joining the tribe?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think about when I boxed. Mm-hmm. My coach said this. He goes, "You can always tell how serious somebody is about fighting by how they come to the gym the first day. Do they come with some friends? Do they come alone?" My coach's gym is up 3 stories on the top of a building. You got to climb steps, and it's a lonely door. It's not like there's buildings or anything. It's just where it's at. There's nothing else in that structure. And he said one of the things that's great about this gym is that long walk up the steps, that how serious are you? It's little stuff like that. You watch the process. You don't look at the outcome. Don't look at what people say.
Okay.
Look at what they do.
Right.
Look at what they've done.
Right.
If you tell me that you think differently and you're an individual, but all I see are the same kind of tropes. Well, first of all, I really don't think, with a variation point of 7, almost 8 billion humans, man, nobody's unique, and we're all influenced by roughly the same thing in the area. Just what you've decided to call yourself unique by.
Sure. In our own little world.
But the more you, and then on top of that, the more you proclaim it, the more I know that, that's what you want me to think. I tell people all the time, man, I'm a regular dude. Because I really want people to think that. but objectively, I understand that I've had experiences that are not only different, but markedly difficult for a person to go through.
Sure.
And that's given me a perspective that makes people think I'm not unique.
Is there? So okay, let's talk further about the joining the tribe, joining the group. And let's talk not specifically politics, but just in generality, left, right. And this happens on both sides. What amazes me, Ed, is you have people, accomplished people. I would say I call them people with paper, degreed people that have accomplished dynamic things in their life. But it all seems, for some of them, to go right out the window when it comes to politics. Almost to the point where I would look at a person that I know as a critical thinker. I view that person as doing very dynamic things in their career, but I will see them die on the hill for Donald Trump or die on their hill for Hillary Clinton, even after they've been shown in debates and conversations probably the portions of what they believe are just simply not true. They will die on that hill for those beliefs, even if they know portions of it are absolutely abject incorrect. Why is that?
Okay, so
I don't get it.
There's a few things going on at play there, but I think the main one, I don't think it's their fault.
Really?
I think a large problem is the structure of our system.
Okay.
It's binary. You got one or the other.
All right.
Okay.
But you can choose to not play.
You can choose to not play. That's the other option. But here's what I'll say about the not playing option. That's the option I take.
Right.
I recognize that I have the ability to not play because everyone else or most people choose to play.
Okay.
I do not want even 10% of the population to take my stance because then I think we might have a problem. And maybe that's the problem we need to have, right?
Right. That's another discussion.
But that's another discussion.
Right.
But the big problem, I think, to begin with is that your thinking is going to go A or B, okay? That is one problem. That's a big one.
Okay.
And you don't really get a chance. You can't mix and match and create another party. We don't have that in this country. So
unfortunately,
it's kind of interesting, and people don't consider this, but it's almost terrifying that I can look at your belief about one thing and I can guess your belief about a bunch of other things.
That's terrifying.
And that seems nuts until you remember that, to fit in this box, you got to fit in this box. To fit in that box, you got to fit in that box. And they've kind of grouped these things together already for lots of reasons. I think a lot of it is because it just, you figured out what appeals to your base and you're trying to win votes. And so it just goes on, and eventually you get a personality profile of a group, and the more you have to simplify that, the greater range it has to cover.
Okay, I get that.
So there's that aspect of it. There's also the aspect of what did someone say? Politics is war without violence, and war is violence without politics. I think that's Fred Hampton. I know that because I just heard it. It's always been a my guy's gonna beat your guy type thing. People, and it's conflict at its purest root.
Okay.
Now,
It's a popularity contest is what it is.
Sure.
To me, that's all it is.
Well, sure. However the outcome is decided is kind of irrelevant.
Okay.
Whether it be because who's popular, who scored the most points, who got the highest vote by the judges.
Okay.
How the outcome is decided doesn't matter. What matters is it's my team. It's a conflict. It's my team versus your team. Okay. Or our guns, right? Like all different kind of ways to decide the outcome of a thing. But it's still a conflict. When you remember that, then you go, okay. You've made a person have to adopt beliefs or adopt ideas. And even if they don't feel that strongly about abortion, they feel that strongly about guns. And so whenever they hear somebody say something against abortion, they immediately have to go, you must be attacking my guns too. Because why would you attack association? So now everything gets like everything, and it pays to politicize everything. Because if you're trying to win, you want to recruit as many soldiers as you can.
Okay.
Right, in your battle. And the best way to do that, make everything political. And they've done a great job of this. Make it all political. Anyone who falls into it, because we're tribal out of nature, it doesn't matter how smart you are, we're still tribal. You go, okay, you got that idea. I'm going to bite on that one. I'm going to swallow it all. And the things that I agree with are going to make the things that I'm kind of okay with. That flavor is going to outweigh that other flavor, so it's palatable to me, right? And so you get the whole country divided along these lines, and you ultimately have to pick a side, because you know what angers people a lot. I've learned indifference. I have never got, and you know what's funny? No one ever, because when people go, you should vote.
I hate that.
When they go, you should vote. They're never saying, make up your decision. Make up your mind. I always say, would you prefer, and when I know who they vote for, I go, would you prefer I vote for the other guy? You just want me to vote.
Of course.
And
not.
that always causes a pause, because that's not what they want. They want to recruit me.
Of course they do.
They want to prove, they either want to prove that their side is correct, or, and to take out that, or to express that tribal nature, they want to attack my side. There's no win if you're going to be. This is another reason why people aren't independent thinkers, right? There's a high cost associated with leaving a group. You need to be strong enough to stand on your own. Now, in the old days, that meant being able to fight off and shoot off whatever a group, because you didn't have the gang. That's how gangs operate. That's why gangs operate. It's like, you could be on your own, and we don't know what's going to happen to you. But you be with us, we at least know what can happen if something happens to you. You won't have to deal with our nonsense, but
I get it.
That's how gang protection works. No different than politics.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's no coincidence that Bloods and Crips are red and blue. And Democrat and Republicans and Democrats are red and blue as well. I mean, maybe it's a coincidence, but it's funny. But it works the same way. If you're going to step, but it's just psychological and social now. It's not a physical conflict. At least not in this country. There are some countries you gotta vote for somebody, right? We don't have that in America. Another great thing about being here, right? No one makes you do that, but. Now all the recipes are coming together. Think about being a soldier. What's one of the things they make you do when you enlist? When you enlist, you know you're not a pacifist.
Right.
Don't come with that nonsense later, because we're going to court-martial you if you decide all of a sudden that you don't want to kill nobody.
That's a good point.
So when you sign up, they're not forcing you. At least conscription, that's different, and we haven't had conscription for a long time. Thank goodness.
Right.
But You may not agree with all of it, but you gotta agree with enough of it. And so if you want to have an easy time in this and continue along, you're gonna have to do one or two things. You're either gonna have to buy all of it, or take none of it. And if you take none of it, there's a penalty for that.
Right.
In the old days, there was a harsher penalty.
Right.
Now it's just social ostracization.
Right.
Because you're not really. I mean, I think about this all the time. Living here, I rarely encounter a group of people that aren't like hardcore, blue people. And living in the middle, or not even in the middle, I just choose not to engage. I guess technically I'm a libertarian.
Right. If you accept that label.
Yeah. Well, I think labels are good because because we have a language, and language is used for communication. Okay. So even if I have a word that is not 100% accurate, it's better for the sake of communication to get 90%.
Way to describe it. Yeah.
Even if there's nuance, we can deal with nuance on a deeper discussion.
It's better for the process of communication, right?
Exactly. Or as I always like to say, I'm not arrogant enough to create an entirely new word and expect the rest of the world to catch on. So
I get it.
For all intents and purposes, for lack of a better term, whenever I precede what I'm about to say with one of those phrases,
right,
that means I'm about to say something that is like,
got it,
or use an adjective that's like 80% accurate.
I understand.
Yeah. So you got to buy into it, and I think that's my interpretation of it all. Is that it really is war without violence.
Pure it's conflict. It's the other part of that is both sides don't want you to be in the middle. They will destroy you if you're in them. They'll destroy you worse than they would destroy the other side.
Think about it. And we see this in warfare all the time. It's nothing short of impressive that Switzerland managed to stay neutral.
It's very impressive.
They got occupied.
Yeah, they did get occupied.
Right?
They did get occupied.
Because when you're in the middle, you don't have protection. You
point.
Can't stay you can't be neutral. It's very hard, at the very least. And if you're going to be neutral, understand you need to be strong. You need to have resources. You need to have a way to stay out.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Think about we'll just use our knowledge of war, right? Well, we know, at least my little knowledge. In World War One, we enter World War One. No one because they attacked that submarine, and we were like, we got to do something.
Yep.
Right? World War Two,
that's what dragged us.
They attacked Pearl Harbor, but we were trying to chill.
So yeah, I think we would have gotten there anyways had they not attacked us. We'd have been drawn in, I think.
Yeah, we would have. But the whole idea is that you can't. When you maintain that position, you put a target on your back.
No question about it.
You put it, and not only do you put one target on your back, you're actually worse than if you chose the side, because you got both. Because now both sides are like, they don't really know what to do with you.
And that takes a strong individual to live that way.
Exactly. They have no idea, because think about it. If we're in the street and you and I are arguing, and there's a conflict going on, the bystanders passing, they don't really have a dog in the fight.
Right. But
if somebody shows up that knows both of us, we don't know what side they're going to go on. So what do? We start trying to convince them.
Or threaten them.
Yeah, or threaten. One way or the other, we try and get them to see our position, because neutrality, this is what you stay out of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But we don't want you to stay out of it, because we know that more numbers, more support helps.
Right.
And neutrality or indifference is much more difficult. Because a lot of times you're going to have to shut down arguments from both sides. It's not just defending, but because here's the thing, and you got to be smarter too. I mean, I think I know, I know probably more than I ever want. I know more about politics in my position
Then you want to.
than I would know if I was only one side.
Understood.
Because I've had to absorb both
No
angles.
question. No doubt about it.
So I can, because I do like the verbal sparring,
Sure.
occasionally because
Sure.
it helps me learn.
Certainly.
But I want to make sure I know when I say something or I highlight something,
Right.
I want to make sure I can support it.
Right.
So it's not just a feeling, because I didn't reach this. I mean, I was motivated by a feeling, but for it to make sense to me, I had to look and learn. I reached a few conclusions that a lot of other people who have a similar perspective have reached as well, and they reached it independently. So I was like, okay. I know, at the very least, I know I'm not crazy. A lot of people who have similar thoughts to me looked at they looked at the same book and they got a different message than other people.
We live in a world of absolutes, I like to say, which is, and maybe we always have, but it really is apparent to me now. And it's apparent to me because of the caustic nature of left versus right in this country, where if I believe in abortion rights, the woman's right to choose, and let's say I believe in any other progressive topic, then I buy into the whole
Right.
Same thing on the Republican side. If you believe in gun rights, but you don't believe in capital punishment, well, you better rectify that, because if you grab one, you must believe in the rest of it. Yeah. So besides the political thing, people are doing this, Ed, but it seems like they're applying that principle to the rest of their life, too. We're living in a world, I think, where there's more absolutes, and it's not helping the national dialogue.
But here's the thing. Absolutes are easy. It's a lot easy to go, you think this, you must think a bunch of this, and you go, you know what? Seems right. It's like that. That's easier.
Boom. Like, but why though? To me, that's insulting to my intellect.
People try to expend as little energy as possible. Look, I'm telling you, if you look at everything, if you start to dispassionately look at people as systems, and you apply the rules of systems,
okay,
and even networks, systems and networks to their communication,
and
the things they believe in, the actions they take, all of a sudden, a lot of stuff makes sense that may have perplexed you at one point about human nature.
Taking the emotion out of it.
Take emotion out of it, and just look at a human as a system.
Okay,
and they follow it, like everything from emergent traits to thermodynamic equilibrium. All of this makes sense.
Got it.
Right? Like people's belief in conspiracy. All right? Or rather, why people's belief in conspiracy. How does this happen? Well, it's an emergent trait. It's a combination of us not being comfortable with randomness. We really hate randomness.
Okay.
Like the brain just it always tries to find a pattern.
Right.
And then complexity, we always actually want to reduce a complex thing to a simple idea to understand it.
Right.
So now you've got, okay, here's this thing that we don't have all the information, so we're going to just fill in the blanks with whatever we need to know. Or whatever, and it doesn't have to be facts. We're just gonna whatever feels right. We want to search for the most simple explanation because of course we're not going to go learn the physics of how we probably landed on the moon.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You take those two things, plus the idea. Notice conspiracies are never positive.
Never.
There's never a positive.
Nope.
Like
it's a good point.
Like, you know why they really did it? Well, what's the fee? Because one of the things that I made a joke about this. I said, what if the coronavirus is a conspiracy to get people to stop traveling so much so the environment can heal?
No one will buy into that.
No one will buy. And that's because we've evolved to spot negativity. Because this makes sense. If you're trouncing around it was a much bigger cost to you to mistake a plant and that one's poisonous versus not than it would be to spot an extra source of water. Right. It just costs more.
Right.
So you take those three things and all of a sudden you get a wacky explanation with a more sinister meaning.
Okay.
because now you're explaining the gaps in your knowledge. You've simplified something. You've also simplified randomness, which is just a part of life. Things just happen. I mean, sometimes it has nothing to do with anything. It's just things happen.
It's hard for humans to accept that, though.
And if you put a negative spin on it, now what you've done when you put that negative spin on it, now you've got something that's easily spread. Got it. And all of a sudden, I mean, I've been having these arguments. I mean, it actually blows my mind. But it's crazy to me. Like, I can deal with someone having a different belief or a different opinion. But when you start arguing facts that have been proven for years, the flat earthers, for example. And I stopped getting mad, and instead I said, let me figure out, why would someone believe the earth is flat? Okay. And I said, okay, for starters, there's no easy way to look at it, and if you haven't been trained in the experiments that would show that simply, we're not talking about relying on anything that would make the conspiracy true or false, i.e. satellites, like just something simple like understanding how to use trigonometry to measure the way shadows change, or understanding how a horizon works, or understanding gravity. Like there's so many things that were figured out at one point, but people just don't know them. So I go, okay, let's go with that. Okay. And then they don't understand how, like why a plane, someone was like, why doesn't a plane, why don't you turn upside down? And that sounds really stupid to me. And then I said, wait a second. If you don't understand gravity and frames of reference, that's how you get there. And then you get a bunch of people who don't study these things and know these things. So now the idea is easily spread.
So you're saying it comes out of ignorance. Then.
Right. It comes out of, exactly. Right. Why do we believe in magic for so long? Because someone for at one point saw a lightning bolt strike and something crazy happened, and they went, during a thunderstorm, if I do this and I say this, then maybe later this will happen. It's not understanding the cause and the effect, but a lot of things do come out of ignorance. Someone showed me a picture of the moon landing, and they were like, why are the shadows pointing the wrong way? My first thought when I looked at it is, well, I don't see a source of light directly in front of me, so there's nothing that says the shadows are pointing the wrong way. That was my first thought, but I have to remember, I understand physics and and how shadows work. Right. So,
I get it. I get that. I do. It's frustrating though, because case in point, let's say you have a gun rights guy. He's going on about gun rights, and he's got a MAGA hat on. He's red. He's a stated Republican, and you ask him, so if you were to ask him, the Republican platform happens to also include a pro-choice or pro-life movement. And absolutely. Like those two, the gun rights and pro-life are two components of the conservative movement, have no physical relationship to each other.
No relationship.
Yet they will profess to believe in both of them because someone has said they go together, and they just buy into that. That is so. There's nothing
not
sophisticated
only that,
about that.
But check it out. This is my point about the two buckets. They don't go together. You're right. But what other combination do you have to choose from? People really don't like the idea.
We can't pick and choose what we believe. Like
sure you can.
I mean,
but then your environment goes, all right, you're gonna vote this way. So what? Now I've met people that go, okay, single issue voter, I think is the word. The phrase.
Yeah.
Right.
Litmus test voter.
And in many ways, that's probably the most honest way to go about it.
I would agree with that.
Given like the choices in front of you, you pick the one that's most important to you.
That's how most people vote, right?
Yeah. But what happens is when you bring up other stuff, then because people don't attack the idea, they attacked. Because the idea is hard. It's a smaller target, and it's a more nuanced argument you have to make, and you have to be more educated to fight it. Instead, they fight the bigger platform. They'll go, I'm going to battle against conservatism, not I'm going to debate you on the idea of when does life begin, because that's a harder argument without any real clear answer, and on top of that, you still leave with an opinion. Instead, when you look at
Got it.
I'm going to debate a conservative. Then you can easily kind of pull up examples of perhaps errors or things that were not popular and make your argument on that. And so this person feels like, because this is a conservative standpoint, whatever that standpoint is, they feel like they've got to defend those things instead of just
That's
going,
crazy.
I don't know about that, but here's what I believe, and I had to vote this because that was important to me. Like I watched an argument that was unfolding during the election. That was, if you take the election seriously, you can't vote third party.
Yeah.
Because that's just a vote for the other person or losing the vote. And I said, you got to understand something, guy. There's someone I didn't know. It was on their on somebody else's wall. I was like, there are a lot of people who vote based on what they believe. To them, it's not about battling the other person. It's about their personal choices and beliefs.
And that's it.
It's not about, let's go take down the other guy.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Right.
And that's
exactly. You just nailed it. And that's the mindset we're in now. It really is. I'm voting for my guy because it's against you.
right.
How do we get there?
People are much more.
It's the Yankees and the Boston Red Sox game. That's
Okay,
what it
how,
is, right?
how do we get there? You ever see the movie Idiocracy?
Yes, I have.
Hilarious
I
movie.
laughed my way through that.
You know
thing.
what I watched it is most ironic thing. I watched it when I should have been studying for a physics exam at like 4 a.m. I said, you know what? I downloaded this. Let me watch it. Something stood out to me about Idiocracy. Aside from the general premise, everyone just kept getting stupider and stupider and stupider.
Right.
Do you remember how the president was elected? The guy, Terry Crews, played the president.
Yeah.
He had won like a reality show or something like that. You might see where I'm going here.
I do.
We got here. People don't understand because they just look at the outcome. They don't want to study the process because that takes more energy. But when you study the process, you realize that we got to Trump being elected because people collectively were more and more dissatisfied with the options presented to them.
Right.
And the what we'll call them the elites, people are really bad at taking drastic action in the face of evidence, especially with the less the weaker the correlation is, because weak correlation doesn't necessarily mean wrong or right. I mean, it just means when you plot on a number, the numbers don't necessarily match up directly. Like if you look at like smoking doesn't cause lung cancer, but you probably shouldn't smoke.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
Especially if you don't want lung cancer. Is that the kind of thing?
Yeah.
So if you want good leadership, you probably should give people more choice in leadership.
Okay.
Instead of presenting them, because I really enjoyed, as someone who doesn't and just looks at these things and studies them, I really like to look at the election and then the subsequent, not election of Trump is a highlight of one thing I always say. Politics is largely just an overcorrection of what the last administration did. The problem now, though, is they have corrupted and let people down. They've been so corrupted and let people down so much that all it'll take, like Trump gets elected because people are tired of the other thing. They're just tired of it. Right. They want something new. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
They just want it new.
Well, that's what happens when you get two-termer, right? Yep. The vice president typically never has a shot. It's rare. The vice president of a two-termer, because people are fed up with that regime for 8 years.
I mean, you got to be incredible to be like, okay, right? So now Biden gets elected. So they get a chance, and I'm sure they're going to mess it up because people are really bad at this as a whole to show something different. But what will happen is that there'll be enough not actually done to meet people, then the false promises, and then the overcorrection will just keep coming. And in our lifetime, I just don't see Trump being the least qualified person that will ever have an office in our lifetime. I just from a purely and when I say least qualified, I mean from a purely understanding how politics works. It's not all policy. There is the word politics, like relating and dealing with people.
Yeah, there's no business. He has business background, which will give him some of the management skills required for it.
But the people not even close.
Well,
and that's really
pop star is coming next. I believe a pop
Oh,
star.
absolutely. Kanye got on the ballot. It'll come.
It'll be The Rock. It'll be someone in pop culture that will be the next one. I believe that.
Yeah. And they'll have so much influence and power that the establishment won't be able to go no. Because the establishment makes
Our side got to win.
Yeah. So they decide kind of who to support for president and who to go up, because it won't matter. It won't matter because the overcorrection is coming. Just like it didn't matter for Trump, because there were a lot of Republicans who were like not for him.
Right.
It didn't matter.
Right.
And it won't matter. whoever comes next in the whole not political spectrum is going to be even less qualified. They're going to have less of an accomplishment. A top 10 record or a few, because there's short of that Chinese occupation we're talking about,
right,
or something crazy. Yeah, that's coming.
Before you go today, can you talk a little bit about when you decided to get sober and what that looked like, and how your life has really changed for the better the moment you made that decision? You touched on it a little bit prior, but we really didn't get into it.
Yeah, man. Sobriety is really, I always say sobriety is the best gift I ever gave myself, because it was a keystone habit. Every bit of friction I was running into in my life and improvement, whether it be in relationships, finances, sports, whatever, evaporated when I got rid of alcohol. And it was because of the relationship I had with alcohol.
Well, how much were you drinking? Like, give me an example of what your life looked like 3 months before you got sober.
Oh man, it was every day, easy. If I could afford it every day, and if I couldn't afford, and then when I realized maybe money was a limiting issue, I'd say I ain't got money. Guys were fans of me fighting.
They come through.
Come to the bar. We'd be all right. Don't worry about them. Okay, here we go. Right. And you gotta understand, there's a whole culture around drinking, especially when you're in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to walk away from that culture, because it's all you know, and everyone is in it.
The bar culture primarily?
Bar culture, party culture. I was still going to different drinking with people. That's what we did. We got together. It was like, let's get a bottle. It's just in the background, man. Like that's what you do.
Okay.
And when I made that decision to stop, I recognized that I was going to be giving up a social life. But at that point, I made the decision. I said, you know what? I don't want this to be the peak of my life. The partying I'm having here, which is nothing. The way I enjoy my life now is way better, right? And why is that? I took some time off and stopped wasting money and time chasing one thing, and went after something else.
You really view it as just basically a simple decision? Just, I am going to quit drinking because it's not serving me well. I mean, that takes a lot of intestinal fortitude. Do
I think it boils down? Sure. Everything boils down to a decision. The thing is going up to the decision, right? Until you get there. That's the issue. For example, you really have to admit you have a problem. And I think it really helps if you admit to somebody else too. Because now I've been like talking to people and doing consulting and whatever.
Right.
And what I find is that the people who have the most success are the ones who have been able to look in the mirror and go, this is a problem. And they're able to tell somebody. Because when you tell people, what you've done is I was telling the guy yesterday in a consult this, and this is really interesting. I never thought of it this way, but I said, look, if you get in front of a problem before it causes a big problem, people tend to forgive and forget the other little problems.
Got it.
Right? Like there is, for example, there is BC, Ed, back in consumption, and then there's AD, AD
AC.
me after drunkenness, right? That's what I call it. Before before stopping consumption,
That's good.
And then after drunkenness, and look, I ain't kill nobody,
right?
I ain't assault nobody,
right?
I didn't lose money, right? Destitute, didn't have to lean on. So people tend to forgive the little stuff,
right?
The little things, the drunk text, the outrageous rowdy behavior, and they forgive it because I got in front of it before it caused the bigger issue. They just sweep it under, and if anyone ever brings it up, they go, "Oh, he was drinking." Because it's like let's forget like the emotional aspect that takes place when you do that. From a purely like mental standpoint, like a person can think their way through that, right? That like there's not a lot of mental gymnastics. Because the fewer mental hoops you have to give a person to jump through to reach a conclusion, the more likely they are to reach that conclusion.
Good point.
So if I go, okay, that was back when I was drinking, and now I'm not, and I'm still sober. Then they go, okay, this guy was serious. Life's good here. It was not good there. It seems the reason the alcohol was the issue. I can get that. I can relate to that problem. We're going to let that go.
Yeah.
We're going to let it
I get it.
drop off. So that's like a really, it's really important thing when you decide you want to stop drinking. You have to go, okay, here's a problem, and tell people. Because when you tell them, they go, okay.
Kind of hold you accountable.
Now you're on notice.
Yeah.
And they're not like watching to make sure you don't drink.
Yeah.
But now they know. And now they're going to see, are you serious? Or are you just saying that because you feel bad?
Right.
Right. So so if you do those two things, I think you're going to do it. And everything else after that is just really a series of experiences reinforcing what you start to think, which is you got a problem, you got an issue. But when you make those two big steps, when you go, and it's usually in that order, admitting to yourself before other people tell you
Right.
that you have a problem, and then telling somebody else. And here's something else. I learned in my experience and talking to other people. People generally aren't going to tell you. They're just going to cut you off.
Huh. I would agree with that.
Like, it ain't going to be a big thing, because part of me was like, why didn't any of my friends ever tell me or talk to me? Because I had a lot of them go, yeah, you was probably drinking too much afterwards, okay? But no one ever said nothing to me. Because it ain't their...
It's an awkward conversation.
I mean, they care about me, but it's an awkward conversation. It ain't really their job.
Right. Self-policing.
Right. Self-policing. But because I self-policed, they're willing to forgive a lot of the stuff I did when I was not in my right mind, because they can go, that was the drunk you, this the new, you've been here now for 8 years, this is serious. All right, your past looks different. And this is like anything else.
Right.
If you go to the judge, I mean, if you're for a crime, what are they going to do? They're weighing your character, and they're weighing how your character appears to everyone else.
Certainly. What did it look like for you when did you struggle the first couple of months? Did you go through withdrawals? How'd you handle all that?
I'm fortunate in that when I stopped drinking, I was unbelievably busy. I mean, I had just got back from the Army, so I had my drills. I had just enrolled in school. I was working. I was still training for my pro fights. I couldn't have that as a problem. Like, it became real easy to go, okay, really tired. We're going to go. Like, not even really going out and socializing where I'd be tempted for, I think, the first 6 months. I don't think I saw it, because I wanted to prove to myself I was serious. Got it. Because I had motivations for my future and, past pain as well, but motivations for my future. I said, let me prove I'm serious about this to myself. And so I'm pretty, I'm trying to think. I got the first clear memory I have going out, it wasn't cold anymore. So for probably 6 months or so, maybe. It took a little while, but I was in school, so it was either 4 months or 7 months. It was that middle part of the summer. Well, no, I went to school 7 semesters straight. So when I say straight, I mean summer, spring, and winter. Right. So it could have been any time, but it wasn't cold. I remember that. So it was like 4 or some months later.
It basically comes down to a decision, but why is that so difficult for most people?
You can't beat your environment. Not only can you not beat your environment, and that if everyone around you is doing it, it's going to be very hard for you to step away. I think people underestimate how powerful the machine is that wants you to keep drinking.
Okay, what do you mean?
Think about how recognizable the Budweiser symbol is. You don't need, like me saying that. You know exactly what it looks like. You see I
remember the little dog. Remember the little Spuds McKenzie dog.
Spuds McKenzie. you drive by. You know what the even now,
remember that commercial?
You can spot a beer distributor mile away. They've got their branding down pat, and it's not even uniform.
In every bar, there's a branding sign in the window. Yeah, good point.
There's a whole system
Yeah.
that wants you to keep drinking. The
Okay.
commercials, everything.
Okay.
It's hard. All entire social events are built around it.
Oh,
well,
cool.
what's the one thing they put on wedding invitations? Open bar or not? Right. Everything, it's ingrained in every part of society. So when you step away from that, you're stepping away from something that is normal.
Even the dining experience, right?
Yeah.
You go there and they bring you a cocktail before you have your meal. I mean,
Drink menu, whatever, like anything to drink them, like it's so normal, but when you decide that's not going to be you,
I know.
it's very difficult. What's
Initially.
the old joke? Everyone, I thought the old joke. Alcohol is the only drug that when you don't do it, people think you have a problem. Right?
I never heard that before. That's good.
But
it's true.
Yeah, like no one ever assumes that like you just don't drink. It's always the question is religion or a problem. Like, no, I just right. Which is like, in my case, is a problem. But like, if someone decides not to drink, then they got to deal with that.
Well, I think people that are even watching what they eat are ostracized because I think.
Oh, for sure.
Don't you think? I mean, I know that personally. Just changing my entire diet, quitting drinking, and changing my entire diet. It's been immensely beneficial to me. But the process wasn't real comfortable on the social front. It just wasn't, I'll tell you. Eventually you don't care. I just didn't care
not
anymore,
only do you not care, but over time, it becomes kind of a source of pride.
It does. It does.
To where, like, when somebody, questions or looks at me, and my mind is like, what's wrong with you? Look at you. Your plate is horrible. I'm like, look at me. I'm in shape. What about you, buddy? Like, and that's another thing that really helps too, is that after a certain
that's self-motivating for me.
Yeah, your life starts to reflect your choices, and then people look foolish for questioning them.
They do. It goes from that standpoint of like a little awkward in the beginning, like, well, I'm going to turn down this drink and I'm going to eat completely different than everybody else. But then after a while, I don't wear anything as a badge, but an internal badge. Like, this is who I am. This is what makes me feel great. And it's quite different than just about everybody else I know.
Yeah, now that I'm 36, and I just had my birthday, I go to this gym, people don't. And I know now, like before there was a point where I was like, y'all just being nice, right? No, but I know now, like getting some of the reactions from both sexes, not just men or not just women or men, that my appearance is not expected for 36. Not so much that I look like younger, like I'm not going to get carded in the bar or I'm not going to get carded or anything, but no, man, people don't maintain their health after a certain point, and it shows, and so it's become a sign of age.
Why? Why is that? Is it because we wear down and we get tired? Does life beat us down? Do we get sedentary when we get in relationships? We tend to let ourselves go because we don't have to be marketable anymore. Like what is that phenomenon?
It's a combination of those things, but the biggest reason is that you're battling time. You're battling, or rather, you're battling a system. Back to system. The body is a system, and like all systems, entropy increases over time.
No doubt.
So what you have to do is counter entropy. You have to work out. You have to reduce the amount of wasteful waste to nutrient ratio in the food you eat. So you got to eat better food.
Right.
So all of these things halt the increase of entropy, and in many cases reverses it. People don't do these things because these things require. Look, man, I love an ice cream cone. I love a cookie. I can't eat that, but and
I get it.
I'm disciplined enough. Like, I love ginger snaps. I know that if I got a bag in the house, I'm eat them, so they don't come in the house.
Right.
Except
for discipline.
So that's all it is. And I do it because I like being healthy. I want to give myself the look. If some type of congenital disease takes me out, okay, it was in the cards. Wasn't nothing I could do about it.
But it wasn't self-inflicted.
Yeah, but exactly. But if I'm gonna go, it's gonna be because I walk out of here and I get hit by a car or something like that. It's not going to be because of something I had control over,
Yeah, and that's really an interesting mindset. There's a mindset shift that I just think that people have to come to it on their own. You obviously put out so much good material, and you help people look at life differently and hopefully improve their life through that material. Are there times that you say, "Wow, it really," how do you rationalize with the odds of someone making those decisions? I mean, you can only influence to a certain degree, right? It really comes down to making the personal decision.
Oh, yeah. At the end of the day, that's it. All I do is put out my material because that's my decision. And,
right.
And that's what I know, and that's where I think I can do my best work on this planet.
Right.
And I enjoy it. It's totally up to you to use it. Here's what I can rest easy with. One, that when I die, the world will not be worse than it was when I entered it due to my actions. There's no guarantee I've made things better. I like to think I have, but I can absolutely say that when you average everything out over time, things aren't worse because I was born.
Got it.
Okay? And part of that is making a decision to teach and learn, to teach what I've learned from my life, and I do that with my content.
Right.
All right. That's a big one. But getting people to make choices, make decisions, it's not like I can't do anything about that.
Right. Right.
So
you can provide the content, provide pathways to make changes, but people have to want to do it.
Right. That's pretty much it. And if they want to, I'm here.
Yeah.
My content's here. My book is here. You
right.
know?
Right.
But like for example, I never get on a soapbox and tell someone to stop drinking. That's whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because I know you're not going to listen, and that's more than likely going to deteriorate the quality of our relationship. And it's not really going to be that big of a deal. Right. If you go and kill somebody, you won't do that anyway.
Right.
But if you do want to stop and you're not sure what to do, or you're just curious, then we can have that dialogue.
Absolutely.
I'm not about impressing my ideas. I just put them out there, and hopefully somebody picks up on
right
them.
On. It's edlatimore.com, my friends. You're going away for a trip here, going out of the country for a little bit?
Yeah, I'll be leaving Monday. Took the COVID test. That's why when we rescheduled, I had a test in the morning.
Yeah.
Real easy. Just so you know, if you ever gotta go somewhere you need a test, then we test was like 120. Showed up the next day, and then mounted off, and then there was like a video monitor as we took the test, and then sent it off and got the results the next night.
Yeah, they got to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a good system. So I think things are going to return to normal. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, we're really fortunate that we live in Western PA, not been shut down like, for example, California.
Oh yeah, New York,
and you can travel. I mean, I've been out the country since. I'm going out again. You can't go everywhere. Like, for example, I mean, well, she can go to Europe. I got to get married to her to go to Europe.
Right.
But the world, you adapt, you manage, man. It's a good time.
Yeah. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you for giving me so much time today.
Hey, no problem, man.
This was
Thank
awesome. We'll do this again soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Friends, we are out.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.